now, for people who don't know who you are, would you mind just like introducing yourself and kind of just giving us a little hint of who you are?
So my name is Robert Lewis Hunter. I'm running for the local state house seat. It's Gadsden, Rainbow City, Alabama. It's Metro Etowah County, essentially. I'm running because I don't see enough decency, humanity for those who are actually trying to survive. I don't hear anything from my opponent talking about what we're going to do about the minimum wage, what we're going to do about the rising rent, what we're going to do about the electricity rate, other than minor cuts around the edges.
Yeah.
I have heard him say little to nothing about expanding healthcare. And that's something that's really scary, because if the Jackson Hospital could potentially close in the next 3 or 4 years, my 2 hospitals that I've lived next to could potentially close. They're like half the size, if that. And that's really scary, because if our hospitals close, and there's been 15 hospitals that closed in the last 20 years, health insurance goes up, obviously.
Yeah.
Life insurance goes up. Your car insurance could potentially go up, because now you got people with medical issues having to drive to other cities.
Because you're in a medical desert.
Yeah. It's also just going to, in general, honestly, even your property insurance could potentially go up, because you'll have more people having mini strokes trying to drive and hit a house.
Yeah, because people don't want to have to pay the fees for ambulances for that long. Or
that's
even
if you have an ambulance.
And you might have to Uber to the hospital.
Yeah.
If you have an Uber.
If Uber will allow you after the first dead body, they're going to probably restrict it.
Yeah. You had a crazy moment on the way here. You wanted to speak to that, because I feel like that speaks to where we're at in the world, very much so.
It was essentially, there was a police officer that pulled me over and was looking for a 6'2", 6'3" black man that was dreaded, that was darker than me, that was wearing a red bandana, that had purple accessories on, which even my straps are not purple.
Yeah.
Like, once you said purple accessories, that should have been like.
They're like, let's be real for a second. Did you comb your dreads out between the time that they were looking for you and the time that you were like that?
Genuinely, some people don't have the cultural understanding to believe that it is possible to comb dreads out in less than an hour.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Which,
like, if you're doing that, the business opportunities are there.
Yeah, you should be somewhere down in Metro Atlanta.
Yeah, you should be a loctician. You should be doing somebody's dreads for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just something that happens sometimes due to the fact that because we don't have the cover of night, they have an insinuation of over-policing black people, which there was a study specifically done when I talk about the cover of night. The interactions that happen with cops at night is actually pretty even 50-50, to the point where, oh, this person actually probably did something that insinuated the need to be pulled over.
Right.
Speeding on.
Right.
But the more visibility that certain officers have, the more likelihood they're going to pick certain people because they believe that there's a criminality to your skin color.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's just off of, it's kind of hard to profile at night when you can't see anything except for the vehicle or whatever.
Yeah, and also, that's another thing I will say that gets frustrating sometimes is the timing. A great example is I did a grant with the Vera Justice Institute, where we were looking into specifically police and addiction statistics over incarceration. And we saw that there was a 50% spike in incarceration during election year because we live in a state where a lot of the legal system is elected. So for primaries, you got to stack bodies underneath the prison system to make sure that you look presentable.
Right.
Especially when it comes to your prosecutors and your judges.
Wow. So I think the fact that it even happened was just crazy because there's been so much going on in the state just regarding, voting rights being dismantled and gutted and just racial injustice in general. Has been, lynchings that have happened in the state recently. Like, it's been crazy. So I feel like it kind of speaks to the time that
I want my community to thrive. I want my community to be safe.
Yeah.
And for that to happen, we have to make sure that we're actually policy and politicking towards something that is the betterment of all, not the betterment of only those who already own 10 houses.
In a lot of ways. Because I think a lot of people distance themselves from the racial injustices that are still happening, as if it's just like a thing of the past, or, we've just completely, moved on from it. And it's like, that's a privilege that you feel that way because you're not being confronted with it. It's very easy to feel like something's not prevalent when you're not being faced with it on your day-to-day living experience. And that's a frustration that I have. But I have grace for it. I understand it. I try to, but at the same time, I feel like at times it feels overwhelming and a little exhausting.
I think that's also one of the issues that we have is our educational systems are not teaching half of the stuff that you need to talk about. I'll give you a great example. Conflict resolution.
Yes.
There was a time where I used to carry around a pink lighter.
Mm-hmm.
There were community members that worked cooks and waitresses downtown when I would visit downtown and I was doing other stuff. A great example being I ran a free store for 3 years. Gonna get back to that in a minute. But when I'd be downtown with some of these folks that I'm friends and I know, and they only get a 14, 15-minute break because it's a busy day, they don't want to spend that 15 minutes driving somewhere to go get a lighter to come back and smoke.
Yeah.
So I used to carry around a pink lighter. I do not do that anymore because someone who was not one of these service workers was needing a light. It was an older man. And I was like, here you go. He felt so offended by this 50-cent pink lighter, he was almost willing to go to jail for assault. Talking about a 6-month to 5-year bit. Was going to assault me. He was like, what are you doing? Or why are you doing this to me? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. You seem like somebody that was in need and I had a resource I wanted to give you. My apologies.
Yeah.
I hope you have a good day. And I walked off. Now,
was it like a homophobic thing? Like,
I guess
that you were coming off to him because the lighter was pink?
It would be the first time, but then again, that's something else. Most people are just like, well, those people don't exist. You're like, they're 1 in 7.
Yeah.
If there's 7 folks here, someone's being truthful or someone's lying.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Normally, all you gotta do is pull out the grind, and someone's gonna.
Weak. Yeah.
But
agreed.
But I think it's a fear of being exploited more tied into that homophobia.
I think that
becoming a second or even third class citizen based off your sexuality.
I feel like men know that the only thing to fear, truly, physically, typically, in this world, most prevalently, is other men. And in most situations, they don't. But they so fear living the plight of a woman that the homophobia is like, it's really just a fear. It's just a great fear of being victim. Gay men are not attracted to the men that feel like they will be targeted. They don't want you,
because they got dirt under their nails. They don't be doing any type of hygiene.
Yeah, they don't want you, babe. They don't want you, babe.
They don't know cruising language. They don't know.
Literally. Like,
even something as simple as, hey, what did you eat today? Well, I had me some chili and some brown beans. Oh, this is not the time or place.
It starts to sound like a British breakfast. And they're like, I'm scared.
Bloody sausage. You're like, oh. Yeah, we're not interacting. I promise you. We're not interacting.
I killed a deer and I ate it on grilled cheese. Sorry. Anyways, I'm sure that's a lovely meal. No offense to any.
It is, but if you're trying to have a relationship and have an adult interaction.
Yeah, it's not, no one's.
Anything close to dun-dun-dun-dun. Have you felt like a manly man? And man, that's why you need a Ford F-150. Ford F-150, it comes with bacon grease.
Yeah, no, actually.
But yeah, so even something as simple as conflict resolution, even something as simple as interactions over context of what you're talking about are things that are not taught in school. It's one of the things I was working on when I was working with Stay Together Appalachian Youth. It's a youth leadership and acceleration program. Because these are not things that are taught in your educational system. Even something as simple as setting up coordinating a meeting. very few people, unless you're specifically taking a very specific type of home ec, you just have to assume your parents are teaching you this. But what if your parents aren't been taught that either? It took that type of secondary classing out, if I remember correctly, like 94, 95 under a Bill Clinton cut.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult for some people to be even having regular interactions of what it means to have a job in this economy. Because the old school, well, you just don't understand, son. What you just need to do is put on a tie, shake a man's hand, and that gets you the job. You're like, that's
a terrible strategy. That's not gonna work.
Or even worse, like even going back to introspective relationships, at what point do we say that outdated information has become less charming and more harmful? A great example being, there's a whole bunch of dudes that are like, hey, yeah, I would like to have an interaction with this individual. Okay, let's start with the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, how are you? Try to find something that we have a common agreement on.
Yeah.
That's not what my grandpa taught me. What did your grandpa teach you? Oh, yeah. My grandpa, from before marital rape was considered a crime, my grandpa,
literally,
my grandpa, before sexual harassment was actually codified, he taught me you just go up and you don't stop until the cops come.
No, that's literally the strategy.
I'm gonna need you to. I'm gonna take time out of my life I don't
Grandma
have.
was a victim.
Yeah.
Grandma was.
Where did you meet your grandma?
How
we met her.
was.
My grandpa met my grandma at the soccer in middle school. Okay, I mean it's not the worst place to meet. Yeah, he was there after he got out of his college. Okay. But from his perspective, that's not something that was written down somewhere, and it worked for his grandpa until his grandpa got divorced once it became easy for no fault divorce.
Yeah.
but yeah, also like
grandma was a victim, grandpa was a predator. These are problems.
Yeah.
But I feel like also like I think that's such a difficult concept for people that legality it does not equal morality.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like, well, it's legal. Okay, and like so was like lynching me.
At what point you're like, hey man, we saw too many black people that were happy because they had ice cream. We're gonna ban ice cream in this town.
Literally, like being jovial, having a waist size bigger than a certain thing because they didn't want girls that had too much booty in the street. Like, you know what I mean?
You're like, well, I'm gonna have to stop you right there.
Yeah. They had
you look like you have a zest for life.
Like
we're going to have to get that up out of here.
They had bonnet laws.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have your hair wrapped. What's crazy?
But
and then they talk about Sharia law. They're like, oh well, you know.
You mean where
they're being told how they can dress? It's like, baby, we already work. That happened. Like here, not to that degree, but
I mean, even something as simple as not having our own version of the Crown Act, where hey, your hair, it's clean, it's kept up, it clearly has been re-tied in the last 2 weeks. It's just not the corporate professional look we're looking for. We're going to usually get that bald fade. No waves. No waves. Bald fade, no waves.
That pisses me off so bad.
And just like, is it because you've never seen anyone talk about corporate acquisition that smelled of coconut oil? And
yeah, and does cocoa butter, does moisture offend you? Like, never mind.
We don't do that around here.
Yeah.
Hydration?
Sorry, I use a wash rag and a loofah and African net sponge.
Which is one of the things I want to look at eventually is a Crown Act here, because I do think that there are individuals that get put in terrible situations because our school system is supposed to be our educational corridor that gets us from child to adult, and what we teach our values there go into the workforce. So when you teach, hey, certain looks are considered prohibitive and we can give you ISS for it, we can suspend you for it, it becomes a problem for the working population on their perspective of what is considered acceptable.
Yeah. Truly doing, basically, I feel, what a politician should do, which is to be an advocate for the people that they govern, that they support, that they are the spokesperson for. Essentially, you're their advocate, you're their person. And I feel like a lot of times you see candidates get into things for the right reasons and then they get corrupted by, and I just feel like you can just tell the difference in character and someone that will that end up that way and someone that won't. I really truly feel like you won't. And I feel like that is what sets you apart as a candidate and then a potential political leader. So
I also think it's important to understand what your attachments are to the community and where you start. A great example being it's harder for me, even if I moderate, I'd still be within top 6, top 7 most progressive state legislature members because I'm starting out as a dim stock socialist.
yeah.
Worst case scenario, I'll be left leaning to the point where I'm probably still starting on progressive caucus inside of the state legislature and more than likely putting on my own leftist / socialist conference everything for the foreseeable future.
Mm-hmm.
But also I'm doing that because these actions affect me. Because that's another problem with our state legislature is take a wild guess how many folks walk in without a $100,000 job or without 1 to 10 houses that they own.
Yeah.
Out of 105, 3. I would be the 4th.
Wow.
So sometimes there's not an urgency that comes from these individuals because they're like, what do you mean your rent is due? Just sell one of your other houses.
Yeah.
What do you mean your electricity is a little too high?
Not down to earth.
Yeah.
Out of touch. Very much so. And
I don't say that they're have always been out of touch. I say that after 25 and 2 houses, your perspective on what is an emergency is different.
it's an age thing, you know. It's like when my parents were buying a house, like it was so they got their house built, their first house together, and like they were in their 30s. We lived in apartments and stuff like that before them. They worked very hard to get where they were because we started out very, very poor. But at the same time, like it seemed so easy. And then as a millennial coming into this world and this reality of like being an adult and what that looks like. And I think as a realtor even, I saw a lot of like people like expecting to find those like 3, 4 bedroom houses, 3, 4 bathrooms, like can pass, an inspection. And is loan appropriate, right? Because of all of these different, mandates and all the things that you have to go through and all of the stipulations to qualify for these loans for like 100K. That's not happening.
I think the entire housing market is overinflated.
Oh, beyond.
Which is one of the reasons why one of the policies I want to work on is a rental cap. I personally believe once you own 3 houses, you're now affecting more than yourself, you're affecting the community.
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe that you have a house for you got a house for your kids, and you have a house that you rent out for profit. We should cap how much you're raising your tenant's rent to about 10% year over year. Because how many of your residents that you're renting out to can see a 10% increase in their salary? When's the last time you remember making a 10% increase in your salary?
Exactly.
I've only done it once, and I had 4 part-time jobs at the time. And the moment that I was able to get down from 4 to like 2, it went down. And that's frustrating because you're making an automatic gap between what you have and what's possible when this happens. I'll give you a great example. Minimum wage has not gone up in 17 years, but guess what has? Your rent and your mortgage have went up at least $400 to $500. I think that you have to have pointed discussions and pointed policy preferences.
Yeah.
I may not be able to get the percentages that I want passed, but we now have a verbiage for what we want. Because saying we want affordability but not explaining where that affordability is coming from is a big problem. I'll give you a great example. There are people that can say, I want affordability. I want to reduce the taxes on your property by 3%. Number one, you need property. You need to own a $100,000 house to get a 3% cut. I don't own a house. That cut does not apply to me.
Yeah.
That affordability is for folks who already have property.
Yeah.
That type of affordability is not going to help my grandma.
Exactly.
What is going to help my grandma is the fact that we could have potentially reduced her strain if we had gotten this bill passed a cycle ago or 2. Because my grandmother had someone buy her house and then raised her rent from about 545 to 945.
Wow.
Which she's on fixed income. She's barely struggling as is. It's already a problem. But here's the problem on top of that. She's stuck. How many community members do you know of that have an extra $500 laying around? Not that many. On top of that, how many community members do you know of that have the extra $3,000 to move somewhere? You have to have first month, last month of deposit. We're not even thinking about 3 times the wage or 3 times the rent.
Wow.
Most people don't have $3,000 in
No.
the back pocket.
No. Not in this economy.
No.
What got you into politics? And have you always been politically aware or active, or is there like a turning point for you, a moment that like sparked that?
Reaganomics, war on drugs. My father was charged under Ronald Reagan's disparity between crack cocaine in black neighborhoods and white powdered cocaine in rich neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Black man, crack cocaine, was going to spend a lot more time in jail. He was able to get a sorry, my brain is not quite there right now. He was going to get a parole, and that parole specifically would have been this, and this. Violate parole. I learned about this at maybe 13, 14 years old, and I couldn't understand why parole violation, which could be what, a week to 6 months, could automatically turn into 30, 40 years. And I had to have someone explain that, because even at 13 years old, 30 is a lot more than 6.
Yeah.
30 years is a lot more than 6 months. So I'm just like, what's the reasoning behind this? Well, this. That's not great. That's not great reasoning. And they're like, it doesn't have to be. It's what America wants. It's the politics America wants. And it's not even the politics of what America wants. That's a dead politics from 82.
Yeah.
And this was like 2009, 2010. This is before Obama did the reforms. Luckily, after the reforms, my dad wasn't able to get resentenced, and it carried a lot less weight. But that was the starting perspective, and I think that's one of the issues that pops up, is that the starting perspective was because something affected me personally. And I think with a lot of folks, because they work 9 to 5, because they work hard, they don't have a lot of time to themselves, because they don't get paid enough to have time to themselves. Or they say, I don't need the extra shift. Unless something affects them, they just don't have time for it.
They don't have time to care
anymore.
I mean, really, and I think that's what's killing people's souls in a lot of ways, because we are naturally empathetic beings, and we don't have time for empathy. That sentence alone is so sad. We don't have time for empathy. Like, the time that people are wasting in, and I don't say that lightly, because I know some people feel that their jobs are, and the work that they do, I will say, is valuable. And I agree that there's lots of work that is valuable, but it's not being valued. And that's the problem. Because if it were, then their humanity would also be valued alongside that work. And it's not equitable right now.
That's one of the problems, is the valuability, the valuableness of the specific situation is dependent on your money. That's the reason why you can have Epstein Island, and it's not as big of an issue as your local gang. One of those is Fortune. Yeah. You're like, hey, it'd be one thing if you were like Fortune 500 leader. Like, your morality is more because your money is more. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's how you get folks that are like, I can go get me a lawyer for $100,000 and make this thing go away.
Yeah.
Or I call it the cushion protection. Essentially, some folks are walking around with a padded coat full of money. So something that diametrically affects them, we'll take that coat away. And they'll say, hey, I've had my privileges removed. There are folks who were on a run for president leading up to an incident happening. Oh, someone died because of me. Well, I can't run for president, and that's my cross to bear. But if someone else did that who didn't have the money, taken away, 100%, no problem.
Right.
Because their protection wasn't there, so they just took the person.
I kind of wanted to know if you could take this political journey anywhere, like any dream, not just for yourself, but what you can do for Americans and just people in Alabama. What is your vision? If you truly accomplish I'm talking about your own personal utopia of like, I get all these things done, I do all these things, and this is how I do it. What does that look like?
Starting at the local level, the first thing is increasing educational funds.
Yes, we did touch
Because,
on that.
yeah, because it's one of the things that, like, if our entire system is reliant on these certain individuals that go through it, you need to make sure that system is actually working.
Right.
That's the first thing. The second thing is we build out hubs of community interaction and education. A great example being we need a place for our unhoused folks to be able to live.
Resources.
Yeah. What I'd like to see is educational systems set up specifically for them. That way, if you don't get through the system the first time, we have a corrective system that is going to help you out. Not going to put you in a box and you're not going to be held to any standard of humanity for the foreseeable future.
Basically, what No Child Left Behind should have been.
Yeah.
Like actually not leaving the child behind, not just overlooking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that also goes back into the next step, which is try to calcify those gains because people win, people lose. I want to make a bar set that it can't fall below. So the next step is resetting the bar, which would be putting together a multi-million-dollar budget specifically for debt relief. Because there's some folks that can make $100,000, but because they went to school and have $100,000 worth of school debt or $200,000 worth of medical debt because a drunk driver hit them, they're stuck in a situation where they cannot buy a house or go forward in life because they don't qualify for the loan. They have way too much debt on them. Yeah. You can buy medical debt for cents on the dollar. So if we start a multi-million-dollar budget specifically that, I think with about $17 million, we could wipe out the entire state of Alabama's debt, at least medical debt.
Yeah.
And that will make a difference to people trying to buy homes. That will make a difference to people who are trying to potentially get their car because they lost their home and now they need a secondary place to live. That is something we have to worry about. Now, once we get out of education and resource management, we then get into diplomacy. I would also like to see our little version of a expanded Big Brothers Big Sisters, where we're paying youth from the ages of 18 to 25, 18 to 26, to on top of saying, hey, you have college as an option, you have trades as an option. We also are going to teach you how to be diplomats, and you're going to be our diplomats in this area. I would like every city to have their own youth city council. And what I mean by this is specifically saying, hey, this area has so and so many people. Your job, you're going to get paid at least $20,000 a year, is to go and actually talk to community members. You're their representative. You bring back this information to those inside. You also are someone, your job is to interact with the community. So some of your responsibilities will be helping old ladies cross the street.
Yeah.
Helping people take out trash. Making sure that people's trash bills are working in right order. And also, that's another thing. One of the bills I'd like to work on is utilities, and specifically inside of utilities, making sure it's all civil infractions. I don't like the idea that someone could potentially be late on their trash bill and go to jail, and then be late on their rent, and then that's another $50 to $100 on the late fee.
Right, restructuring how that works from the inside. And I will say, my first career was in law enforcement. I learned that I hated it. But I think if you have a soul, it's kind of just hard to do a job like that. I worked in corrections for 2 years out of Blount County, Alabama. Very country, very redneck area, and it wasn't really the inmates or the quote unquote criminals that were the issue. It was the people that I worked with and alongside, and the things that I saw that really affected me negatively. But what I will say, just speaking to what you said about people going to jail over minor infractions that have to do with utilities or even like an unpaid like speeding or parking ticket or whatever, it's so sad. And it's so like even in training for corrections, they would teach us that over 80% of inmates were not even like career criminals to start with. They just were undiagnosed or diagnosed and untreated mentally ill people. Something that our government knows to an extent that it's taught at a local level in a small rural town. The fact that that was part of our like training and education like you know it, but then you're still doing all these things. And then ultimately, what led me to leave that job was because I would do my job correctly, and I would get not necessarily like in trouble, like written up for it, but was ostracized from my coworkers because either A, they felt like me giving people hygiene products like soap and toothbrushes and stuff that they needed, pads for women, on the days that they're supposed to legally get them, or not using, withholding those things from them as a punishment, or not going along with them when they wanted to do that. That kind of stuff just really sickened me. And there were so many times being there for 2 years, seeing like an 18-year-old kid come in on something like a minor infraction, clean bill, never done anything, you know what I mean? And then watch him learn how to be a criminal from people who were really actually criminals who actually, like, I wouldn't say deserve to be in there, but are definitely menaces. um, and then get connections on the outside to the criminal networks that the people on the inside were connected to, and then end up back in there for like real stuff, like murder, like I mean assault, like stuff that they had never been involved with before, and then they are in there forever. It happens that quick, and it's designed to be that way. We definitely have to have um, some sort of change when it comes to such small things ruining people's lives. Women lost custody of their children, and then those children end up getting abused in the system all over, like tickets, all over, like, you know what I mean? Like, just.
And that's also like one of the other things I think is really important is how long you're inside the system could affect your ability to function outside of it.
Yes.
Another policy I'd like to see done.
Rehabilitation is not possible in some of these. Go ahead, sorry.
You're completely fine. There are some folks who are stuck in situations. There was an incident a while back of a young man who was, I believe Browder, correctly, that was stuck in Rikers for nearly 3 years for a stolen backpack. I would like to see a time served, time in, time out type of policy where if the policy dictates you serve this amount of time, once we hit the maximum, you're let out to your as a bail fund here until your next uh, court appearance. Because there's some folks that get put in a situation. Hey man, you punched a guy. You're gonna be here until we have the ability to give you a trial. They could be in there a year and a half, 2, 3 years to get their trial, and then okay, you're good, time served. What I'd like to see is an operation that for the low end of items, petty theft, if you will. Once you serve your time, you're good until they bring you back to actually make sure. Of course, in the parole system, of course, there will be restrictions, but that goes back into public safety of rehabilitation and not straight punishment. That also goes back into what we consider public safety to mean. Because that's another issue that sometimes pops up is what do you think public safety is supposed to be and where are we right now? Which we're not in this place where I can say that you go into this prison system, you come out a better person.
Because when people talk about certain people talk about public safety, who they consider the public lines up with who they consider a human, and a lot of people don't fit into that category. So for them, it is the safety of a select few, and what makes them feel safe is anything that they don't understand, don't align with, or don't agree with,
or cannot make money on
being out of their sight and out of their community.
A great example being I would like to legalize marijuana and gambling. Because these are public safety issues where folks are getting scammed or dying from illicit things that are inside what they thought was okay because their friend Timmy got it from their friend Kyle, but then Kyle cut it with washing detergent and Fabuloso.
Yeah.
It also is a safety issue because that is a form of funding that we cannot track, that we cannot confirm or verify, that then goes into other criminal operations.
Not to mention, as we were speaking about people ending up in the system, that is probably one of, if not the most prevalent charge that people get, just BS over marijuana. That's so not something that someone should be locked up for even a month for, in my opinion. Unless they are intentionally lacing something to that they know can harm someone. But even that, I feel like my stepdad who raised me, um, his mother passed away when he was 8. She went in for routine surgery. It was just like an endoscopy or something.
Right.
And she had just never been under anesthesia. She had her kids natural. She never had been taking anything stronger than an aspirin, you know. And her heart just gave out. And he and his brothers were motherless. Their dad was a drug addict. And he was 8. My Uncle Chris was 5. My Uncle Jojo was 12. We started selling drugs to be able to provide for his brothers because their dad was not present father. Um, and there he was in and out of prison my whole childhood. But like anybody that needed their Christmas paid for in the neighborhood or the community, he paid for it. Anybody that was being mistreated, he showed up to make sure they were protected. He wasn't, and he still isn't a perfect person, but it's just I don't agree with people harming others, even if it's not directly, even if it's indirect, even if that's not their intention. But I think I empathize with the plight that people have to deal with and the hands that people are dealt that get them to that position.
There was no $15 an hour job that they could go easily get.
Yeah, at 12 years old,
No.
when your mother's dead and your dad's an addict, you know, like that just wasn't his reality. And so, you know, I feel like he can't be an anomaly. Like he can't be the only one. So.
Oh no, definitely.
Like most, I would wager to say that that's probably a very similar, if not like right on par with like what most people get into that a need to survive in a system that hasn't given them an appropriate avenue to get there.
Or their version of an appropriate avenue is, hey, we can have you work at a steel plant, catch cancer, and your knees blow out at 40.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, okay, what's the next step after that? Well, I hope you figure something out because we don't give out pensions like we used to.
Yeah.
But I mean, that also goes back to utilization of resources. And that also even goes back to what I was talking about, legalization. Because one of the issues going to pop up is Alabama's about to hit a deficit. And yeah, we've had a lot of COVID money swirling around the system for 4 or 5 years now.
Circling the drain.
Yeah. It stayed here, but the problem is in the next I'll say 3 to 4 years, it's probably going to go down. Because the idea is real simple. Federal government gave money to every single level, including regular folks. When regular folks spend, we'll say, $45 on feeding their kids that week. Some of that tax money, on top of them at the state municipal level getting some federal money, some of that federal money that went from them, those checks, went back to them from sales tax. Same thing at the state level. So we've just been draining out all that COVID money all the way to the bottom and then out back into the federal level. So one of the problems that's going to pop up is we're about to hit a deficit. And when we hit a deficit, the first thing that our current legislators are going to do is cuts. And the first thing they're going to cut is education. Inside of education, free and reduced lunch, more than likely.
Yeah.
I don't trust them because they showed that you cannot trust them on their word when you have like our governor saying we're not going to do this to disenfranchise black people. Then less than a week later, like, hey, I just kind of need to wait so y'all wouldn't get too mad when I do this. Just to waste your time and I guess waste mine, honestly. So I don't trust them not to do that.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather be put in a situation where we're pushing something forward than waiting for them to force something backwards. And also, I'd much rather be in a situation where there are community members that get to be adults, that get to make the decision if they gamble or not, that get to make the decision if they smoke or not, than a child not get to make the decision if they get to eat today.
Exactly.
My moral standing is Jesus loves children. Jesus is not going to let children die of hunger. But there will be some people that say my moral standing is if the kids starve because we aren't able to feed them, there's a place in heaven for them. I don't think that they're supposed to be suffering like that, especially when they're.
I don't think that's a part of the plan.
I don't think that's something that Jesus Christ was like for.
Yeah, I don't think Jesus was like, I'm dying so that you guys can suffer more. That I didn't remember that, but like maybe we had different.
And between Medicaid expansion, marijuana.
But you know, reading comprehension is low
Yes.
right now. So
I mean, that goes back to our educational system.
and then
like,
if we, you know what?
Yeah.
If in but start from the root.
Yeah.
Not to sound sarcastic, but it's true. What is your stance on data centers and AI and all of the things as it currently stands?
It is technically multifaceted. Do I think that long-term computer learning would be helpful to things like cancer research? Yes. But we had to choose the most carcinogenic, the most exploitive version, because there are other versions of data centers.
And we see China, we see them using solar power, and we see them using.
No, we just want to use the cheapest one.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
We want to use the cheapest one for people to make and then throw them into other folks' areas. I would be for a moratorium until they get their stuff together. And this is coming from someone who was in a city that they tried to put an animal rendering plant, and we got that up out of there. Yeah. But mostly not because community members really did not or did want it. It was partially just because where they were in place was going to devalue the property of a whole bunch of wealthy people. Yeah. And I'm happy that they're on our side, but at the same time, we can't trust that this is going to be a long-term thing. It's very fickle based on their material needs. But no, I'm in the version that they're in right now. I am not for data centers. It's also one of the policies I want to push is a bill that guarantees legally protection of clean air, clean water, and clean land. And the reason why I want to do that protection is something I saw that one of the data centers is pulling up north is they're like, why don't we just sue this? How much is this city worth? 41 million. That's their budget. We'll sue them for 42. So the city has to settle because they do not have the money to deal with the potential cost of them losing.
Wow.
You're like, we don't have to ask permission. That was a formality. We're going to force you to do this. And you're like, you're going to force my kids to drink this brown, dirty water? No! I'm going to make a protection that if you tried to do that, we can countersue.
Yeah.
Under our Clean Air, Clean Water, and Clean Land Act. But in general, I don't think it's helpful long term. Also, even short term, it's going to bring what? 45 jobs for specifically construction. And then after construction of about a year, those jobs are gone. And then the leftover jobs after that is 15 to 35. And those 15 to 35 are not guaranteed to actually be people from our community where they spend money in our local grocery stores. That could be Jim Bob Bob from Tennessee.
Right.
And he just comes in on the weekends to check things and then leaves.
I mean, true enough. I really and truly believe that policy and good policy change can and will make a huge difference. And I feel like the pushback that we've been getting recently, I think people know that change is possible. It wouldn't feel so dire, or they wouldn't be trying to catastrophize things the way that they are to make everyone feel like the sky is falling. If it truly was. Because if it wasn't, it was. And everyone would know that it is. And no, you know, they wouldn't have to push the narrative. They wouldn't have to continue to like crazy headline, crazy headline, crazy headline. It would just be obvious.
I think it's not the possibility, it's the political will to do it.
And I think people are there. And people are tired. People are tired of the same systems that get us nowhere, chasing our tails, living in despair, living a life, living to work instead of working to live.
Yeah, I mean, that also goes back to making sure we put blockades to make sure we don't backslide even more. It's one of the reasons why
we do have to hold the line and then try and make progress. And I think what you were basically saying earlier was like the living as far as politically on the defensive versus living on the offense. Like you kind of have to, you can't just be sitting there trying to just constantly defend it. You want to actually like put things in place so that we can eventually make progress.
And even then, there's a difference between a fortified defense and nothing. I'll give you a great example. One of the first things I want to try to work on immediately between Medicaid expansion and minimum wage, I want to work on minimum wage along with those are the main two ones that I want to work as quickly as possible, because I do not trust the Supreme Court not to overturn precedent. What I'm worried about is Mississippi will sue the federal government saying that we have the state's rights to lower our minimum wage.
Mhm.
Supreme Court says Mississippi has states' rights laws, and we're going to throw away out the federal minimum wage $7.25. States get to make their own minimum wage. Can you take a guess where our Alabama minimum wage is? Forced by the federal government. Our actual Alabama minimum wage is $0. Because when they were starting minimum wages in the 40s, Alabama did not want to pay black people a minimum wage.
So slavery.
Yeah. It's the reason why people can work in a prison for 10 cents and work 40 hours for a Hershey's
So it would
bar.
automatically go back to that. Because I know, like,
What would happen is the state of Alabama, the state legislatures would say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold an emergency session, and we're going to make it $5. And I know that because when Birmingham tried to raise their minimum wage to $15, the state stopped them. And then multiple legislatures said if it was up to us, we'd make it $5.
I really feel like this is information that I feel like a lot of people are not talking about as far as like the political candidates and leaders. They're talking about hot button topics, which are important, but I feel like with like the education aspect of it and like actually like maybe I feel like you could do some like short form content that I feel like people would really appreciate some of these things. Like I knew a lot of these things, but some of the intricacies and the way that you explain it, I feel like it really you don't feel like you're being talked at. Like you're understanding what's being said. And like I said, I do have an understanding of a lot of that, but like there were certain things that I was like, didn't think of it that way. So I feel like that could be really important.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the issues is you have to have politicians and community members willing to be introspective of things that could potentially happen. It's just like Medicaid expansion. Do I think that my hospital in my local area will fail in the next year or so? No. I do think there's a possibility in a decade. And because I care about community members who are yet to be born, I still want to make sure that they have the livelihood and decency and life expectancy that should be awarded to them just for being a human being. Because that's another thing about those deserts, your life expectancy will go down by a decade or so.
Exactly. I feel like it's that, but for who? Second question, because it's like, it's all.
Who can afford a private helicopter to fly them to the stadium?
Exactly. So life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Life for who? Liberty for who? Pursuit of happiness for who?
Or for how much?
Or for how much? And these are questions that we need answered. And then once we answer them honestly, we need to figure out how to walk that back and make sure that that applies to all. And that it's not just assumed that it's a reality, that it's a fact, that it is a guarantee.
Because reality can change based on the things that are reacting around you. A great example. Someone can have gasoline draws on. And, hey man, fire is not that big of an issue to me right now. What's the biggest issue to me right now is getting pants. Right. Until a fire rolls around the corner.
Right.
And now it's a problem.
Exactly.
That's the thing with Supreme Court. I'm like, hey, we need to make sure we have our installed 725 as soon as possible. But it's not a problem right now. Like, okay, give it a year and a half and they go and say they get rid of it. Because do we even have to go down the list of rights you now don't have? You got less rights than your grandma was born with.
But you know what, though? That line of thinking is how change happens. And that's when I truly believe that's why they hate and they demonize neurodivergent people so badly. Because pattern recognition is the government's worst nightmare. Mm-hmm. Like, we've seen this. This is 10 steps ahead. I knew this was going to happen since I was like 5.
Yeah.
like, I read the Titanic and I was like, oh, they be killing folks that look different than them. They don't care.
But also there's an indiscrimination. There's an indiscriminate killing of folks based on policy rather than potentiality of a person. They will personally say like, hey man, I don't really care about this particular area, so we're just going to flood it and make a lake. But people die because of that.
Yeah, or we're going to redline this community or this thriving community of people of color and this, whatever.
My friends live there. I don't know why I like.
Yeah. And then people are like, well, they've never done anything to me. So.
Well, that's also one of the issues that pops up is a part of the reason why the Birmingham $15 minimum wage should not happen was because it would have turned Birmingham even deeper blue, also more people would just moved into the suburb area, and there were people who were gerrymandered into these situations where we know exactly how many people live here, so I don't have to worry about losing my seat. I can lose my seat if more people live here because they want to be able to survive.
Yeah.
You've now made a beacon for an area for people to actually be able to pay enough money to survive. And they're like, we cannot have that because I like my job simplified. I don't want new people coming in here and I gotta cater towards them.
Yeah.
I mean, it also goes back to who we're catering towards. It's the reason why in the next 2 or 3 months I'm going to be having a youth town hall for people under the age of 18, due to the fact that most representatives, most people that are fighting for these issues, they don't think of them as full human beings that we actually have to talk to or have to reason with because they can't vote for them. They're like, hey, you're property until you're 18. Now, once you turn 18 and you can potentially threaten my job, then I have to talk to you. I think that's the wrong way of seeing things. Same thing with our prison brothers and sisters. They're in prison. I think that it's important to make sure that we are protecting them as well because as a representative, prisons are folks filled with, our jails are filled with folks that are alive. Mm-hmm. So I'm supposed to represent them. That is quite literally the job.
Yeah, they exist and they're important too. Their lives matter too, just as equally, and they should have a quality of life that is at least substandard. That like because it's not even there yet right now. But I think it should be. I think it should be more than just barely keeping people alive. The medical care.
The fact that sometimes they'll let you out with good time if your medical care costs them too much money.
Exactly. So what really matters? What's really the point? It all goes back to money and greed. And, you know, can you tell them in the DSA? But anyway.
What was that?
Can you tell them in the DSA?
I am too. I'm in North Alabama.
I'm a Cartagena member of the DSA.
National or Birmingham?
Birmingham.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, I think that there's so many atrocities that can definitely be, dealt with and addressed. And I think that you have the will and the knowledge and a voice that can really do those things and get those wheels turning. Lastly, I kind of just wanted to ask, what would you say to those in the community that you wish to govern in the future and also and represent? And what would you say to them to encourage them during the times that we're going through? We've talked about a number of topics, ways that people in our communities, in our state, in our country, are being disenfranchised, are being mistreated, are not being valued as humans, are being used as a cog in a machine. And what would you say to them as far as, you know, that kind of want to just give up? That a lot of people, or that heavy part that people are carrying around, what would you say to them? And how do you do it? What do you say to yourself?
What I would say for myself is that a better world is possible because the world is movable. Political precedent is only there based on what has happened before, and the past has proven the future is possible. A great example being, I did not think that they'd be able to pass new districts at the speed of racism in less than a week. I have a week, 3 or 4 days on the legislative books. Mm-hmm. That shows that it's possible to get these actions done. Mm-hmm. It's not the possibility of could we do this. It's an issue of do we want to or will we do this. As for those that are at home, the thing that I would say is you are loved. Your love should spread to your community, and that community is what makes everything possible. Be it the work you do, be it the life you live. A better world is possible only through the actions and service of our community, which is the reason why my statement, service and solidarity for those who come after, is because the idea of service is how we show our love, solidarity is how we protect that love, and we do this for those that come after us because we understand that we live a life based on past lives, of the roads being paved, of buildings being built. People have already died for us to get where we are today. We need to keep pushing forward under the premise that we can move forward.
Right. I love that. Well, it's been amazing and it's been wonderful talking to you. Eye-opening. You are such a star. I can't even say it any other way, but big fan, big supporter.
I will say I do have a few minutes, so if there's any other questions I didn't cover, I have time to do it.
We covered like all of the outline. Like,
Okay.
is there anything? Is there? And we even went off on a couple other tangents. Is there anything that you would want to speak to that you haven't gotten to yet, as far as like policy things that the platform you're running on?
I would say that you can reach me at www.voteforroberthunter.com. The vote for is VOTE, the number 4. The things I need help with to make this possible is I need community members willing to volunteer, and I need funds to actually do campaign actions. We're looking for about 100 folks willing to give $20 an hour. Sorry, $20 a month.
Not an hour, guys.
Not an hour, no.
We take that out.
We're not McKinley.
Okay. I just want to say that, we kind of, can we give folks a little bit of info about like voting and like when that?
Voting is going to be November the 3rd. It's the first Tuesday in November. The voting place is going to be your local precinct. For you to find your local precinct, you can go on the Secretary of State's website and put in your address, and it should pop up where you're supposed to go.
Awesome. Well, it has been great meeting you. We're going to talk about all the topics that we couldn't talk about on camera, our conspiracies and all the things. But anyways, it was lovely, lovely, lovely to meet you and speak with you. And I cannot wait to get the message out more and continue to advocate anything you guys need. Please let me know, campaign-wise. But anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.